Okay, welcome to another Ginge Mathematician video. It's been a long time since I've recorded a video, and particularly a long time since I've recorded a video going through another iGCSE exam paper. So before I get started, if you like my content, if you like the videos that I do, please mash that like button, mash the subscribe button, and please let YouTube know if you like my videos. So many pupils have asked me, how do I improve my paper 6 skills? So with the iGCSE 0607, there is a paper 2, a paper 4 and a paper 6 for extended, and a paper 1, paper 3 and paper 5 for the core syllabus. And one of the ways that I'm helping my year 10 students, as you can see here, to improve their skills on paper 6 is to start with paper 5. Now, even though paper 5, the maximum grade you can get on a paper 5 is a C, it allows you to adapt to the style of question. And also doesn't really rely on any content you have seen in year 10 and beyond. You've probably done most of the content you need from year 7 to year 9. So it is a good starting point, and it makes you feel a bit more confident about actually getting to grips with the paper 5. So I've taken a paper 5, I've taken a very recent paper, so June 2020, the 6.1 version, and our key objective for today is to review this paper 5 exam and focusing on style of question. I will put a link in the description below to the actual paper so you can download it for yourself as well. So you've got access to it as we go through. Now, the way I've designed this lesson is that we go through each part of the question individually. We then obviously look through the mark scheme and explain anything as we go along, and then look at the examiner's report, seeing where the key mistakes are made. Right, your time is precious, so let's get started straight away. So the first question is all about triangle numbers. So that's going to be the theme of this paper 5. You're given this list of triangle numbers. So the first triangle number is 1, the second triangle number is 3, and so on. And in fact, you can actually draw these numbers. So if I take this one here, for example, T2, well, this is the triangle number where if I draw this, this, and this, it gives me a right angle triangle, and there are 3 dots. Likewise, for T3, I can draw it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are what are triangle numbers. They're simply counting the dots of making the triangle like so. So we need to find the next 2 triangle numbers, so T22 and T23. So we need to start looking at the pattern that's going on. Well, if we look at these 2 numbers here, the difference between them is 21. So 210 plus 21 is 231. The difference between these is 20. The difference between the next 2 numbers is 19. The next difference between these numbers is 18, and so on. So our pattern is the difference themselves change by 1 each time. So have a think, give you 10 seconds, have a think what this difference would be following the pattern I've drawn on the board. And hopefully you can see that this is going to be 22, and then the next one after that would be 23. So to work out T22, like so, we do 231 plus 22, giving us 253. You can do this on a calculator and then add this and this together to give us the next number. So T23 is equal to 276. And then we write those in here. We'll talk about the communication in a moment when we look through the mark scheme. That's the next 2 there. And now we need to complete the table for question 2. So T1 is equal to 1. If we take away T2 and T1 from each other, so 3 minus 1, that's equal to 2. T3 minus T2, well, that's going to be 6 minus 3. And that's going to be equal to 3. So we pop 3 in here. Then we do T4 minus T3. So that's 10 minus 6. And probably at this point you can see the pattern that arises. So this is going to be 4. This is going to be 5. And you can always check this by taking away these numbers. Okay, so we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now this is the first part where pupils can often get confused. Now we've got Tn minus Tn minus 1. And we're thinking, okay, what goes in that box there? But the key thing about this paper, paper 5 and paper 6, is looking for patterns. So, for example, T2 minus T1 is equal to 2. Notice, and I'll change the pen colour because that's fun, is that this 2 is equal to the 2 here. 3 here is equal to the 3 here. This 6 here is equal to the 6 there. So whatever this number is must be the same as what's here. So we're going to write n here because it's the same as this here. Okay, so again, slightly strange question if you're not used to these, but it's just looking for patterns. This is the key thing with the investigation paper. So let's have a look at the mark scheme. So notice you get 2 marks per question in here. You get 2 marks for this and 2 marks for this. Now you're probably thinking, where do those marks come from? So if you show somewhere on your page 231 plus 22, which we did, we showed that here. Okay, so it can be communicated in many different ways. You don't have to write it here. Then you get the communication mark, whereas 253 is the actual answer, the base mark, and you put that there like so. Likewise, the 276, we've shown that 253 plus 23 gives us 276. So the crucial thing about this paper, unlike maybe the paper 2, for example, or the paper 1, is that you need to show this working. Okay, and even if you get this part wrong, this number wrong, as long as you've used your number and added 23, you'll get that communication mark. Okay, so that's very important. And for question 2, you get 1 mark for putting in 3, 4, and 5, putting in the numbers, and then 1 mark for n down here. Okay, now notice on this paper, we do actually have the marks here. Sometimes on these investigation papers you don't, but this one has been a bit more clear. I think that's feedback from previous papers that have done at iGCSE. I didn't always list the mark for it, so it's actually very, very useful to have that there. Okay, and then we move on. So we're given Tn minus 1 is equal to 100, and then we need to write down the value of n. So what I said to you from before is that this number will always be the same as that subtraction. So if you go back, notice here, T3 minus T2 is equal to 3, so this number must be the same as this. So if we go forward, this 100 must be the same as n, so therefore n is 100. So notice they're asking you the same kind of questions, just asking you in slightly different ways. And part 2 is exactly the same. So they ask you the difference between the 50th and 49th triangle number. So if you write that out, what they're asking for is T50 minus T49. Remember the word difference, this word here, means to subtract. So I'm going to write that in as well. Again, feel free to pause the video if I go a little too fast through anything, just please let me know. So T50 minus T49, like we said before, get my pen out, trusty pen, that this number is equal to whatever this number is here, and so we have the answer of 50. So we pop in 50. Notice it's a 1 mark question, so if you just put the answer, so you just put 50 and just put 100, you will then get the mark. Okay, 150. There we are. Okay, so let's carry on. So crunching through this paper. So question 3, this time we're going to add the 2 triangle numbers together. So notice in the previous part we subtracted, now we're going to add them together instead. So we get 1, 4 and 9. So let's just do this one from the grid that we had. Notice this paper is non-linear. So what I mean by that is you often have to go back and look at a different part of the question earlier. And often they'll put things in bold for you to think about going back. So if we do T4 plus T3, go all the way back, T4 is equal to 10 and T3 is equal to 6, so we need to add those together. Let me go back. So 10 plus 6 is equal to 16. And you're more than okay just to do this process from the table. However, you may be able to see a pattern. This is why I'm going to do this quickly. 25 and 36. But if you don't know where these numbers come from, you can of course go back and just add 15 plus 10 and 21 plus 15. Now hopefully you recognise that these are special numbers. So let me write in a different way of writing them. So 1 is equal to 1 squared. 4 is equal to 2 squared. 9 is equal to 3 squared. 16 is equal to 4 squared, and so on. Notice that these numbers that I've just written down, the 4 is equal to this 4 here. Notice the 3 here is equal to this 3 here. So for this one here, whatever this is, this needs to be squared. Yeah, 3 goes to 3 squared. 4 goes to 4 squared. So Tn, the n, must itself go to n squared. Okay. So we'll go through the mark scheme where you get the marks for it. You can probably guess already. And notice the next question is really getting you to, really trying to lead you through the investigation. So use the last row of the table in question 2a to complete the equation. So if I go back to 2a, the last row of the equation was equal to n. Okay, so I go fill that in. And use the last row of question 3 to complete the equation. That's what we just did, so that's going to be n squared. And then from here, we need to show this is true, okay, by adding the two equations together. So what we need to do is add these two together. Okay, so I'm going to do that over here. So let's go through one term at a time and then add them together. So Tn plus Tn is 2 lots of Tn, like one apple and one apple is 2 apples, 1 Tn and 1 Tn is 2 Tn, minus Tn minus 1 plus Tn minus 1, well they cancel, so they disappear. And n plus n squared, be careful, has to be written as just n plus n squared. And now we need to make what we've just written here look like what's here. So what's the opposite of timesing by 2? Well, we're going to divide by 2 on both sides using those equation skills you've been building up ever since probably year 7. This cancels with this. This may not be the only way you've been shown how to do this. And if we divide this by 2, we get n plus n squared divided by 2, which is exactly what we want. Notice this can be written the other way around. Remember, if you do 7 plus 3, it's the same as 3 plus 7. So we are allowed to reverse this around like so. Excellent. Okay, let's have a look at the mark scheme. Let's just check that we are okay with our marks. So yep, you get a space mark, 1 mark for 2 of correct 16, 25, 36. So even if you've got one of those wrong, you still get the full mark, and then 1 mark for n squared. And then you get the method mark for showing the equation I just showed you here. So 2Tn is equal to n plus n squared, or n squared plus n. That is fine as well. Okay, all good. Let's continue on. And now I give you a random question here. Find T1000. And we're thinking, okay, that's a bit strange, T1000. So how are we going to do that? But then we look at the equation we just made. So Tn is equal to n squared plus n over 2. So let me write that on the next page. So Tn is equal to n plus n squared over 2. And so this question is just checking your substitution skills. So we need to replace the n with 1,000. So we're going to get T1000 is equal to 1,000 plus 1,000 squared divided by 2. And so I'm going to do that on my calculator now. So 1,000 plus 1,000 squared, and then divide by 2, and we get 500,500. Remember, this is a calculator paper, so you're more than allowed to use this. Notice this is also a 2-mark question, so we need to make sure we have the working there as well. So if we go to our mark scheme, notice here you need to write that step. Notice that's your communication mark here, 1,000 squared plus 1,000 divided by 2. This can be the other way around, and then that gives you 500,500 for your base mark. If it's more than a 1-mark question, you must show your working. That is numero uno in exams. Right, let's continue. So they give you another table. There's a very big theme in these paper 5s and paper 6s that they often give you tables where you have to look for some kind of pattern. So the table shows the difference of squares of 2 consecutive triangle numbers. So I will show you very briefly how we work out the first one. So we take t3 all squared minus t2 all squared. Again, non-linear paper. Let's go back and check our triangle numbers. And I encourage you to do this as well. So t3 and t2 is 6 and 3. So let's go back forward to the question we need to do. So we've got 6 squared minus 3 squared. Again, you can use a calculator for this. I'll do this manually, so we get 36 minus 9 is equal to 27. And we write that in right here. Now you can do the same thing manually like we just did here, but hopefully you see a pattern again. It's all about looking for patterns. So I'll give you 10 seconds to have a think. What kind of numbers are these? Okay, hopefully you recognised that this 1 is equal to 1 cubed, 1 times 1 times 1. 8 is equal to 2 cubed, that's 2 times 2 times 2. This is equal to 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3, 4 cubed, 5 cubed, and 6 cubed. So with the same pattern that we saw before, notice that the 6 here is the same as the 6 here, 5 here is the same as the 5 here. So we can rewrite this now as n cubed. Okay, so we've got our formula here. So notice it's done in a very similar way to the previous question. And now we need to calculate the difference between the squares of the 50 and 49th triangle numbers. So to write this out, exactly what we're looking for is t50 all squared minus t49 all squared. And remember, it's this number, whatever this number is here, cubed. So we're going to do 50 cubed, which you can do on a calculator, or it's the same calculation as 50 times 50 times 50, which I get my calculator. Of course, you can do this in your head as well. We go for 50 times 50. We get 125,000. Like so. Again, always looking for those patterns. So to show you the mark scheme, you get 1 mark for the 2 numbers, 1 mark for the n cubed. Okay, notice you get communication marks for correct working for 1 value. So showing what I did here, the 6 squared minus 3 squared, is crucial to get the 3rd mark, which they're trying to encourage you to show your working as you go along and not just always just look for the patterns here necessarily. So noticing this piece of working is important. Likewise, writing 50 cubed, okay, so you need to have that figure there, and then 125,000. So notice, 2 mark question, you need to show 50 cubed or 50 times 50 times 50 to get the extra mark. All good. Hopefully at this stage you are feeling more comfortable about this paper, so it's just a matter of practice, a matter of getting used to the style of question. So in question 6, they go for something a little bit different. So they're going to talk about what's called a triangle triple. So this is all about reading through an algorithm, so reading through a process that you need to do, and making sure you can follow that mathematical process. So first of all, you start with T3 equals 6. You think about which of the two triangle numbers subtracted give you 6. Then you substitute the 6 with the T3 from the first step, and then you rearrange this to put this in order from smallest to largest. Now on the surface that might seem quite confusing, but let's just do this together just to see how we get on. Notice we just need to fill in the gaps. So our first step is T5 is 15, so we're told that T5 is equal to 15. So now we check T15 minus the next number along, so T14. That's equal to 15. Now if you're wondering where that comes from, if I go back to question 2a, this comes from my formula a long way back. This one here. So this comes from this formula here that T6 minus T5 is 6. So T15 minus T14 is equal to 15. So using this formula here. And I'll keep going forward. There we are. Okay. Now our next step is to replace this 15. I'll use a different colour. Do like fun with colour. To replace the 15 with T5. So notice everything else stays the same. We're just replacing that. So with that in mind, we're going to write T15 minus T14 is equal to T5. And then notice this step here, we're going to write it in order. So we put the numbers in order, 3, 5, 6. So in this case, it's going to be T5, T14 is equal to T15. So I'm just putting all these numbers in numerical order, so from ascending. So 5, 14, 15, and so we write that in 5, 14, 15 to give us our triangle triple. Notice the maths that I'm doing here is not something to be learnt off by heart, it's to understand the process. And if you go on to do IB, for example, after your iGCSEs, this is something, if you're interested in higher level, for example, there is a new paper 3, this will prepare you very, very well for it. So, again, we just check our answers, making sure nothing else I brought up. Notice you get 1 mark for each row. So you get 1 mark for T14, 15, 1 mark for T15 minus T14, and 1 mark for putting it in order. Okay, very straightforward in terms of marking. Okay, and we can actually fill that into our table here. So we're going to put in the result we just worked out. So if you're wondering where this comes from, 5, 14, 15, this comes from literally what we just did. So go back, 5, 14, 15. I pop that into my table, and now we need to find each of the rows. Now, if you so wished, you could actually go back and actually work this out for yourself. So you could actually follow the algorithm, okay, to actually work out what you need to do. So, for example, what's our next one here? So the triangle triple for 6, for example, you could work that through to actually get the 3 numbers that you need. But a quicker way of doing it is actually to look at the pattern in between the numbers. So if we look at these numbers here, we've got plus 4. Here we've got plus 5. So notice the next one would need to be plus 6, like so. So this would give us then 20, and then the next one would be plus 7, giving us then 27. And we can do a similar idea for this one here as well. So this again is plus 4, plus 5, or you can consider that this number always has to be 1 more than this number. That's the other way of thinking about it as well. And that's giving us then 21 and 28. If we take the one we just did, so if we take 6, 20 and 21, let's just take this example here, for example, and we go back and think about the algorithm that we can actually use in order to work that out. So if we look at T6, so notice in the example where T3, if we take T6 for example, go right back to the beginning, T6 is equal to 21, this one here. So let me go back. This is how to do it using the algorithm. You can see this paper is not straightforward, you have to go back and forward. So if I know that T6, I take the 6 from here, is equal to 21, then I know that T21 minus T20 is equal to 21. I change nothing apart from changing the 21 to T6. And now I rearrange in numerical order. So T6 plus T20 is equal to T21. Okay, which gives us the result that we got here by looking at the pattern between the numbers. So if you want to use the algorithm to work out these numbers, you may do so, or if you find a pattern here, you can also do that as well. And the last part is basically what I just did here. So check the triangle triple beginning with 6. So T6 was equal to 21. So I wrote this down earlier. And now we need to write down what T20 is and T21. So we go back. So you've got the paper in front of you if you've clicked on my link. So T20 is 210 and T21 is 231. Hopefully I don't forget that by the time I get here. Good. So that's 210, that's 231. And notice if I add these two numbers together, I do actually get 231. So it does work as it should. Good. So again, just check the mark scheme. Anything to bring out here? So notice the numbers are here. You get 1 for each cell. And the communication mark comes from either doing either of what I did. So either looking at the differences here to work out these numbers, or work out these are triangle numbers and just follow the pattern, or just use the algorithm, the method, at least once, which is what I did over here. So if you do any of those things, you'll get the extra communication mark as well. And then to get the last mark, just show that 21 plus 210 is equal to 231. Okay, we are almost there. So we've got one more question to go once we've got through this part here. So the triangle numbers T1 and T3 are not consecutive. That means they're not one after the other. There are 2 apart. So again, we need to complete the table of subtracting triangle numbers that are 2 apart this time. So again, this is just going back and using the table. So go all the way back. So we're doing, that's why it's helpful to have the paper in front of you. So T4 minus T2, our numbers go like this, 1, 3, 6, 10, 15. For a maths teacher, you just learn these off by heart. Okay, so T4 minus T2, that's going to be 10 minus 3, that gives you 7. T5 minus T3, so 15 minus 6 is 9. You can probably see the pattern here that we're going up in 2s. That's why we have to be a little bit careful with our part at the bottom. Because notice we do not start at T1, we actually start at T3. So we're going up in 2s, so we can write 2n, back to our normal, so to speak, our normal nth term. Now we have to be a little bit careful, because usually how I teach this in class is, okay, what do you do to 2 to get to 5, which is plus 3. But we're not starting at T1, we're starting at T3. So we need to actually minus 2 lots of 2 away from that, which gives us instead minus 1. Now, if you're not sure about that part here, let's just check some numbers. So when n is equal to 3, which is this one here, then we do 2 times 3 minus 1, and that's equal to 5. Okay, the way I thought about this is, okay, I need something 2 times 3 plus something, let's just call it s for my name, is equal to 5, and so 6 plus s is equal to 5. I need to work out what this s is, this thing we take away each time, and that has to equal minus 1. It's probably not the best letter to use, it kind of looks like my 5s. Okay, so this is not going to be 2n plus 3, which is the most common mistake made here, but in fact it's going to be 2n minus 1. So be a little bit careful as we get towards the end of the paper. Okay, so notice you get B2 for 2n minus 1 or equivalent, so you may have written n plus n minus 1. You get 1 mark though for writing 2n in some form as well, and you get the communication mark for showing differences of 2, which is exactly what I did here as well. So notice I'm picking up the communication marks, but I'm not writing an essay here, but I'm doing what I need to ensure I get maximum marks. Okay, and the last question is, use the triangle number T9 equals 45 to find a triangle triple where the smallest number is 9 and the difference between the other two numbers is 2. So our hints are to use the last row of the table in part A and use a method similar to that in example in question 6. Okay, so the way I would go about this actually, I think it might be slightly different to the mark scheme, is I know the difference between these two triangle numbers. Okay, I know that difference, 2n minus 1 we worked out, needs to be equal to this triangle number here, 45. Okay, so I'm using the last row of the table in part A because the smallest number is 9, okay, and the difference between the other two numbers is 2. So I then do 2n. So what do we do to this side? Minus 1, we actually plus 1. This is just an equation to solve. I'll go through this pretty quickly. 2n is equal to 46, and therefore n is equal to 23. So we know, along with this number 9, T9, that we've also got 23 as well. So 23 needs to be put in there. And so we need to work out the other number. Well, the difference between the other two numbers is 2. So if this is 23, this one has to be then 21. So this number here gives us the largest of the numbers, what they sum to. Okay, but then we need to take 2 away because that's, oops, really gone. This part here, the other two numbers is 2. And again, we can actually check this. So we know that T9 is 45, and we can actually check this by working through our algorithm, similar to question 6. So the algorithm is here. So working through a similar algorithm to what we did here. But I kind of did the quicker method, which is, well, we know the difference must be equal to the nth term. Quickly solve the equation to get n is 23, and then I need to do the number that's 2 less than that, following this instruction, and giving us 21. Okay, so yep, you get the communication mark for the equation that I did basically, 2n minus 1 is 45, and solve, and then you get then the other. Yeah, so 1 mark for the equation, 1 mark for the actual 23 from this equation, and then substituting in to get 23 and 21. Again, if I was being really strict, I would have to say, okay, 23 is my larger number. I want the other difference to be 2, so I need to take 2 away to work out that this is correct. 9, 21, and 23. Okay, I think that's the last question, if I remember rightly. It is indeed. So hopefully you enjoyed this presentation. Again, I'm going to remind you to press the like button down the bottom and press the bell if you want to hear from other videos that I'm making, and what's going on. Let me know if you like this video, if you want me to do more paper 5s or more, maybe a paper 6 as well. But I think the best way to get more confident on a paper 6 is to practice paper 5s first, get a couple done, go through the mark scheme, make sure you're happy with how it works, where do you get the communication marks, and then once you've covered more mathematics and iGCSE, then you're ready to do some paper 6s. Okay, again, mash that like button, mash the subscribe button, encourage people to subscribe. Again, not many people actually subscribe, but it's really, really helpful because you then tell YouTube you like my videos. Right, in that case, I'm going to stop there and bye-bye for now.